What if death is not just the end, but a transition you can control? Many spiritual traditions, ancient mystics, and even those who have had near-death experiences suggest that you can choose not only how, but when you leave this world. For centuries, death has been viewed as a mysterious, inevitable event, a force that is beyond our understanding, beyond our control. We are conditioned to think of it as the final curtain, a biological malfunction that simply marks the end of life. But what if this view is incomplete? What if death is not just an ending, but a profound transition, a step into a new state of being, something we might actually have the power to shape and direct? In countless spiritual traditions, death is often portrayed as a doorway, a passage between worlds. It is not just the termination of the physical body, but the continuation of our soul's journey. What if, rather than being a random event that happens to us, death is a transition that we can consciously influence, guided by the choices we make throughout our lives? Consider the concept of spiritual contracts or life plans, which suggest that before we are born, we make agreements about the experiences we wish to have, including the moment of our departure. These agreements, some believe, are not rigidly set in stone, but flexible, shaped by our actions, intentions, and spiritual growth. In this view, death is not an accident, but a moment of transition that unfolds in harmony with our spiritual path. The question then becomes, are we truly powerless in this moment, or do we, in some way, hold the key to how and when we leave? This perspective is echoed in many near-death experiences. Individuals who have passed through the veil and returned often speak of moments when they were given a choice, whether to return to life or continue on their journey into the afterlife. There are reports of people experiencing a profound sense of peace, clarity, and even connection with divine beings or loved ones, as though the timing of their passing was not predetermined, but chosen in a moment of awareness. Furthermore, some spiritual teachings suggest that our attachment to life, and even our fear of death, can influence when and how we leave. In Eastern traditions, the idea of detachment is central. To live without clinging to the material world, to surrender to the flow of life and death as a natural part of existence. It's said that those who achieve a deep state of spiritual understanding may experience a serene and conscious passing, aware of their time to go, choosing to release themselves when their earthly mission is complete. In this way, death may not be as uncontrollable as we think. Perhaps, deep within us, we know when our time has come, and with spiritual preparation and awareness, we can choose our own exit. Throughout history, there have been stories of individuals who, with chilling accuracy, predicted their own deaths. These are not just coincidences. These are signs that perhaps the soul knows when it is time to depart. Consider the famous case of Mark Twain, who predicted his own death with startling precision. Twain, upon learning of the arrival of Halley's Comet in 1910, remarked that he had come in with the comet and would go out with it as well. True to his words, he passed away the day after the comet's closest approach to Earth, on April 21st, 1910. This eerie coincidence has sparked much speculation. Did Twain perhaps have a deep knowing, a sense of timing that went beyond simple chance? Could it be that our souls, in some way, are aware of their departure long before it happens? In the Buddhist tradition, particularly among Tibetan monks, there is a belief that death can be consciously chosen. Through deep meditation and spiritual practices, monks often enter a state of profound peace where they can dictate the time of their transition. This process, known as tukdam, is where a monk may enter into a meditative state and, upon completing their spiritual mission, choose to leave their physical form. It's as if they're able to align their physical death with their soul's purpose, completing their cycle with grace and awareness. This process suggests that death, rather than being an uncontrollable event, is something that can be consciously timed and chosen. This brings us to a powerful idea present in many Eastern philosophies, the concept of the soul contract. In these traditions, it is believed that before we are born, our soul enters into a contract, a plan, where it chooses certain life experiences, including the moment of death. This contract is not rigid, but can shift depending on the choices we make throughout life. However, When the soul fulfills its mission, its purpose for this life, the time for transition is reached. The question becomes, is this moment written in the stars, or can we influence it with our consciousness? This suggests that while the moment of death may be written into our soul's plan, it is still possible to influence the way it unfolds. The idea that death is predestined in some way does not negate the possibility that we, through our consciousness, spiritual practices, or even our mindset, can alter the way it happens. In these views, the soul is not bound to a strict timeline but operates with a level of freedom, allowing us to choose how we transition when the time is right. Perhaps in the deepest sense, our soul knows when it is time to go. But through our spiritual awareness, we may be able to align that moment with a greater sense of peace and purpose. So, what if your mind has the power to decide when you leave this world? One such phenomenon is seen in terminally ill patients who, despite their diagnosis, have held on to life until they've witnessed or experienced something significant. For example, there are numerous stories of people with terminal illnesses who seem to hold on until a specific event occurs, whether it's the arrival of a loved one, a special family reunion, or the completion of a life's purpose. These individuals often pass away peacefully once this event happens, as though their mind, body, and spirit had been waiting for closure. It's as if they knew, deep down, that their mission in this life was complete, and only after they had fulfilled it could they let go. In some cases, elderly individuals, seemingly healthy and without any medical concerns, have died shortly after achieving a significant life goal, like seeing their children succeed or completing a long-awaited personal project. There's a palpable sense of completion in these instances, as though the person's soul had been waiting for the right moment to transition. This raises the possibility that, through sheer will or consciousness, a person can delay or even accelerate their passing based on their mental state, their attachment to their purpose, or their emotional readiness to leave. These examples tie deeply into the teachings of Eastern philosophies, particularly Buddhism and Hinduism, where death is often viewed as a transition rather than a finality. In these traditions, life is seen as a cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, samsara, and death is merely the gateway to the next stage of existence. In these belief systems, liberation from this cycle is the ultimate goal, and this liberation is known as moksha. Moksha represents the soul's final release from the physical world, the moment when it chooses to free itself from the cycles of reincarnation. A soul that has achieved this state of awareness can depart from its physical body at the right moment, transcending the cycle of death and rebirth. It's a concept that implies not only acceptance of death, but an active, conscious choice to release the body, knowing that the time for rebirth has passed. The spirit, aware of its purpose and mission, can choose to leave the world when it is spiritually ready to do so. The idea that the mind can influence the body's processes and even the moment of death is a concept that is starting to find echoes in modern science as well. Neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to rewire itself, is a phenomenon we typically associate with learning and adapting to new experiences. But what if neuroplasticity extends beyond the physical brain? What if it encompasses the very consciousness of the soul? Some spiritual scientists propose the idea of neuroplasticity of the spirit, suggesting that the mind and soul are deeply intertwined. This theory posits that, through mental and emotional practices, we could alter not only our mental state but also the very course of our life, extending it or accelerating it according to our purpose, our desires, and our consciousness. This idea is not so far-fetched when we consider how our emotions, beliefs, and mental health affect our physical bodies. Studies show that people with a strong sense of purpose and mental well-being tend to live longer and experience better health outcomes. Conversely, individuals who give in to despair or who are emotionally burdened may experience a faster decline in their physical health. This suggests that our mental and spiritual states are not separate from our physical bodies. They are deeply interconnected, and our consciousness may have the power to influence the trajectory of our lives, including the moment of death itself. As we explore the relationship between the mind and death, we begin to see a compelling picture. Perhaps death is not as inevitable or uncontrollable as we once thought. Perhaps it is in some ways a matter of choice, shaped by our spiritual awareness, emotional readiness, and mental will. Through the lens of ancient wisdom and modern science, it seems that the power to choose when and how we depart may lie not only in the hands of fate, but in the deepest recesses of our minds and souls. When people report being offered a choice, stay or return, it raises the possibility that death is not something that simply happens to us. Instead, it may be a process in which our soul actively participates, deciding its next step in the journey. Some describe a life review, where they see their past actions, relationships, and the impact they've had on others. This often brings up deep reflection on their purpose and mission in life, reinforcing the idea that death is tied to the fulfillment of a spiritual journey. If death is a doorway, then life is the preparation. If we can choose when we leave, then perhaps the real question is, what are we doing with the time we have? When we begin to entertain the idea that death may not be random, that it could be a conscious choice, one influenced by our purpose and spiritual growth, our perception of life and death shifts dramatically. No longer are these two events merely biological happenings that occur to us. Instead, they become interconnected milestones in a journey where we have a greater role to play. If we have the power to choose the timing and circumstances of our death, it raises a crucial question. What are we doing with the time we have left? Life in this context becomes not just a series of moments or years, but a sacred process of preparation for that final choice. Every action, every decision, every relationship takes on deeper significance. If we have the potential to guide our soul's journey, then it's clear that our time here on earth is not to be taken for granted. We are not passive observers of life. We are active participants in a grand design, building our spiritual path with every thought, every choice, every breath. This view challenges us to reconsider the way we live. In many spiritual traditions, it is taught that life is a reflection of what comes after death. The way we live impacts the state of our soul, and our actions during our earthly existence shape the transitions we may face. If death is truly a doorway, a transition between one realm and another, then life becomes the preparation. Every step we take in this life is a step toward the next phase, and this perspective encourages us to live intentionally. What are we building spiritually? What kind of energy are we cultivating in our hearts, minds, and actions? This intentionality is at the core of many esoteric teachings, where individuals are urged to live consciously and purposefully. Whether through mindfulness practices, meditation, or by aligning oneself with higher principles, the idea is that our spiritual progress here affects how we transition to the next life, or whether we even decide to transition at all. We may have a deeper sense of control over our death because we have nurtured a conscious awareness of our purpose and our place within the universe. As we reach the final chapters of our journey, the question isn't just how will we die, but how have we lived? This realization places the onus on us to explore and understand our life's purpose, to ensure that every moment is used wisely. Our choices, no matter how small, ripple through time and space, building towards something greater. Are we living in harmony with the world around us, with our soul's calling? Or are we simply waiting for the end to come? In the end, this concept brings us face to face with a profound realization. Life and death are not opposing forces. Instead, they are part of the same cycle, two sides of the same coin. Life is the canvas upon which we paint our spiritual evolution, and death is simply the next phase of that journey. If we can truly choose when we leave, then our greatest challenge is to ask ourselves, what kind of journey are we creating? As we contemplate the nature of our existence, we might find that the question isn't just about when we die, but about whether we're truly ready to embrace life and death as conscious, intentional parts of our spiritual path. Are you ready to make your life and your death a conscious journey? In the end, it is not about fearing the end, but about fully understanding the beginning, the middle, and everything in between. Life is a gift, and death, when seen in the right light, is merely the continuation of that gift, a passage to something greater, a return to the source. The choice is ours, as souls, to live fully, with purpose and intention, and to understand that every step we take brings us closer to the final transition, the ultimate return home.